What up, guys? Here's a little going into part 2 of the Olympic stuff. A little Rise and Grind podcast. Me and my girl Alex Gomez. Episode 2, we talked about the Olympics, kind of little dose of 96, 2000, 2004 was what we really remember. And then kind of went into the 2008 run and some things that really stood out to us from that. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of it. A couple different experiences, some good, some bad. Hopefully you can learn from the bad. But I think the importance for us to be able to just talk about the 2020 stuff, talk about 2024, some Paris stuff, and then more importantly, just 2028 and a couple of different things that stand out with all that stuff. So yeah.
I think, and just to make this clear, the fact that it keeps that softball and baseball together, in, out, sometimes, not always, is I think that's like the biggest frustration that us as players and coaches have seen over the last couple of years, because it's not like baseball and softball have lost like popularity, right? It's not like all of a sudden nobody's watching it. If anything, softball has become one of the more prominent sports. I mean, every year when you guys are doing the broadcasting at the Women's College World Series, like the viewership is going through the roof. Yeah. So I think that that's the biggest frustration that we face, because you have things like 2020 happen. Can't really do anything about that. But then to not have it this year in Paris, when, we're at the peak of this popularity and like the media coverage, like it's only getting with AU in place now, like to not have it this year. So not frustrated at you, but if you hear that coming through, that's why.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. They announced before that 2008 Olympics that it wasn't going to be a thing in 2012. And I can't recall if they had made the comment saying that it wasn't for 16 too, because, each, country that gets it, they make a bid if they want certain sports. And baseball, softball had been that staple sport since 96 on, and then it had been voted that it wasn't going to be that anymore. Right. And I do think when they made kind of that change, we were majority of the time it was the US just dominating people. Fine. Right. But when you look at the baseball piece, I think at times we were hurt sometimes by baseball, because baseball, MLB is not releasing all their top guys. So you're not always getting the cream of the crop for the baseball guys. Not to say that the AAA guys and the other ones that got the opportunities, but like you're not sending Aaron Judge to go compete in the Olympics, right? Yeah. Like Yankees aren't letting them go. So I think there was that piece too, where it's like, dude, to us, the Olympics is everything we train for. You're putting the best athletes on the field. And I do think baseball hurt a little bit with that piece. But I remember hearing the news before the 2008 Olympics and not even knowing what to think about it. Like, do I get really, really angry right now? Like, I'm still fortunate where I get to go to this 2008 Olympics, and I'm lucky because some may not even get an opportunity. But it's like the amount of interviews and things that were constantly talked about, and I don't know how much I could go into just being so negative about it all the time, because it had consumed us for a while. You're like, damn, like I think about 2 Olympic games that I maybe could have got the chance. I'll say for sure one. Probably would have had kids in between the other one, but
probably would have popped out of you. Yeah.
And I don't know if this stands out, but there are so many athletes that didn't get an opportunity to play at the Olympic level.
That was their prime. That was the time when they could have gone. Like, I've said it before, like I didn't have the best batting average. I wasn't the fastest person. I mean, I was fast. I wasn't the fastest, but like, you always think that like could it have happened? Like I would have tried out. I would have tried. I would have made that attempt. But it's like to not even have that opportunity. That's the part that kills you, because you're always going to wonder, like, I may not have been the best, but could I have been good enough?
And could I have had like a hell of a tryout? Like, the way that this stuff works for Team USA is significantly different than Canada and some of the other countries. Canada, the coaches choose the team. US, like you have a committee of people that vote on the athletes that they want to be on the team. And then the coach has a push for a certain number of athletes. I can't say off the top of my head exactly what it is. So like people that are a part of this committee, like You're telling me there's a chance. And listen, like there's people that can go and have, this is the hard part about tryouts. Like you'll have people that'll go and you're like, damn, I got to face like Monica Abbott. I got to face Kat Osterman, Jenny Finch.
That's my tryout. Okay, cool.
Right. And so like, if you don't perform well, that's it. And the US did go pretty heavy off of like tryouts. Like I can at least say for Canada, we didn't have the cream of the crop like y'all did. We don't have that many people trying out. Like we would have loved to have some of the US girls, like how many they could get to tryouts and the talent. Like
you have a little bit of Canadian in you, just a little bit. Like we'll take
I used to ask people all the time. I'd be like, hey, is like got like a grandma or something? Because like we could use someone else. We just didn't have, and softball in Canada wasn't nearly what it was in the US. Like we could pull together some athletes and we were, you know, really good in 2020 and we were good in 2008. We always make it work, but the US is so different because they have almost too many good ones. So who do you pick? How do you gel? Egos aside, what's the best, you know? And there was definitely some people, to me, in my opinion, that I respect so much. And I can only talk about my Team Canada teammates, but I think about like Kaylee Rafter, who's now the head coach of Team Canada and an assistant coach at Florida State. She stuck out from 2008 to 2020 and played. She missed one summer because her dad had a stroke. She played every single summer up until that Olympics in 2021. Like to do that with no Olympic Games,
with no end in sight, like like there's a possibility it might not even happen. And then for 2022 happen, and then you're finding out you have to wait a whole nother year. I know I remember that being a big part of like I remember you talking about that on your like Instagram and stuff about hearing and just it's just like, it makes your heart hurt. Like it was just like the type of training, like to try and put it into perspective for people, not that I've ever gone through it, but like when you're training for an Olympic run, like that's a completely different level of commitment and motivation. And like, you're really putting it to the test. So to go through all of that, because you guys had already gone through a lot of it, you were getting ready to go. And then COVID happens and you're like, wait, so now none of this is happening. And then they're like, oh, but we'll do it again in a year. And you're like, okay, so I can't like just like fall out of shape. Like I kind of just have to like string this along for some more months. And it's like, there's people who, you know, professionally might have been pushing careers off, or in their family life might have been pushing like not having a kid until after the Olympics. And now you have to wait a whole nother year. Like it totally shifts people's life plan. And it was just, I don't know, it just felt it felt like when they made that announcement that it was getting pushed, that it was just so like, sorry, not sorry.
You know, making that decision to go back and do the Olympic run, I made it in July of 2017. And it was hearing Michelle Smith talk about when she was at her best as an athlete. She said 34, 35. I mean, she was the queen over in Japan, played for years over there. And I had just turned 30. And that's where it clicked for me, where I'm like, well, I have a 9-month-old baby and a 2.5-year-old daughter. Oh, but I'm 30. And like, I've gone back and played, like I said on our first episode, like a big moment in time for me was going back in that 2014 season after I had Maddie and body and not putting myself in a position to be as successful as I could have been. And then making that decision to do it again in 2017, understanding I needed to be so much better. Because at the end of the day, listen, like on paper, our Canadian team versus the numbers of some of these other teams, like Mexico is scary, US was scary, Japan, like, but our competitive advantage is shit, we're going to try to work harder than anyone else, so we have this inner confidence to know that we can go and compete at this level. And that's why when they decided to postpone the Olympics, so we as a team, we had to train in Halifax, Nova Scotia in the dead of winter. Halifax, Nova Scotia is an 1.5-hour flight past Boston and New York. So we're talking a 4-hour time change from my family in Seattle. So I was on a different type of run than some of my teammates, me and the other mom on the team, because we had kids. So we were 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And when we'd fly there, like it was almost like military style. We had to stay in a military base.
So it really was
Oh.
military.
I still remember the group showers and the group bathroom and the lime green floors. And I'm like, holy shit, I am like in my 30s. I have 2 kids. I have this house that I love and my family, and I am just at the bottom of the totem pole. Like,
Right.
it's not glamorous. It's not glamorous. But I remember we had never worked that hard on our physical fitness, our lifting, our running, the shit we do on our own. And then we're playing games. We're nonstop inter squad. And we had to do our fitness testing. And as a team, we absolutely killed it. The beat test, and he made it. We had to get a mandatory 8.5 or higher. And I remember being like, Mark, dude, body types. Come on, man. The lactic acid buildup in these legs when I'm getting to the 4 and 5s and 6 of the beep. Like, I'm not a rabbit. It's different. Stupid beep testing should never be. Soccer, completely different, right? Their body types are different. Softball, it's not one size fits all here. We got to do something as far as the fitness that is different than that. Besides the point, we all passed. We killed it on fitness testing. We were the fittest team. We were so confident. And I remember being in that military base, and all of a sudden the shit started hitting the fan. And the scariest thing was when that nursing home in Seattle, actually it was in Kirkland, which is 25 minutes from my house, is where the first outbreak of the COVID happened.
Wow.
And I was like, shit, like that's scary. There's people that have it. Like there's people that have died. That's 20 minutes from my house. What's going to happen? Is my family okay? And then all of a sudden the next day escalated a little more and a little more. And then it got to the point, this was in March, where the whole college season was canceled.
Yep. I'll go into that moment.
And that, I think, speak like that to me hit me like a ton of bricks.
So that was my first season at UC Davis as a coach.
Yeah.
So we're rolling. We'd traveled a little bit. It was still early in the season. So we were like a month in, because college season starts like the second week of February. And I remember at the beginning of March, I just kept telling him, I'm like, everything's going to be fine. Like, don't stress out. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, everything's going to work out. We're going to be good. And I will never forget standing outside of our weight room, right about to start weights. And it wasn't like it came through some official statement or phone call or anything like that. Yeah. Those girls found out through Twitter that their college season was canceled. And just the immediate like cries and like screams of frustration from these players, especially seniors, like it haunts me. It was so disturbing to like the world is in chaos. Like things were crazy. Yeah. And then for them to find out that way, like through Twitter, was like the NCAA has canceled collegiate athletics for the rest of the season for 2020.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so what now? Like seniors, literally, like I was saying, like your entire life plan shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could come back and play again. It's totally fine. Like you get another year. It's like, what if that's not my plan? Like, what if I was planning to like go get married and move across the country? Like, what if I was planning to go join the military? What if I was planning to go start this career that I've been interning for? You know, like it wasn't just this all of a sudden, like, oh, it'll be fine. It was, it shifted everything. And it wasn't just that moment. I mean, as we know, the next following months were just HE double hockey sticks. Yeah, it was just, I mean, I had just found out I was pregnant. So it was like all of these things. Well, this is a side story, but it was so funny because when we left events like softball, like we weren't doing anything, everybody had to go home. Yeah, I was not showing yet. I was 4 months pregnant at the time. Yeah, I went through my entire pregnancy. My team never saw me pregnant. They never saw my belly get big. They never got to see me like coaching with like my belly. I came back in the fall and I had a kid.
That's so weird. It's whack.
It was like they were all so like, I still can't connect the fact that you had that baby. Like I know you're holding her and she's yours, but like it's still really weird to me that like she came out of you because I never saw you get big. So all of a sudden it was just like just Zoom did not do it justice, obviously, because they weren't there with me through the pregnancy, you know, and they were all so excited about it because like coach is having a baby, like I already had 3, they were super excited. And I feel like we missed out on that. We missed out on that experience, like of having, not that they had the baby, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, like they're just there throughout it. Like when I've seen my friends have kids, and I just visited my girlfriend last week, her daughter was 3 or 4 days old. Like, whoa, there's just like a different connection when you know someone and they're close and like different. And it's almost like you pulled a Kylie Jenner. You just went into hiding. No one even knew.
Just went into hiding. Nobody saw me. And then when we came back, everybody's wearing masks. Like, I'm like, I don't know who you are anymore. Like,
and I can't hear you and read your lips. And that was it was a strange time. Like when they postponed the Olympics, we were all sent home from Nova Scotia. My initial thing was like, the Olympics was still going to happen because it hadn't been released that they were going to postpone it yet. So like we're going home with still a sense of motivation of like, okay, hey, like maybe we're down for a month, maybe we're down for 2, and then we're going to connect and we'll be fine. So it's like that was my mentality, but it came sooner than later. I think I found out within the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I found out that I was no longer going to be making any money with ESPN because my contract was done because there's no sports. So I'm like, dang, like that's money for my family. First hit. And then second, they make the decision to postpone the Olympics for another year. Boom, that's another hit. And my initial, when they postponed it, I'm not doing it. I said 100% I'm not doing it. I can't explain to the listeners or to you the amount of stress that put on my family, my marriage, and my like,
just
sounds bad. Yeah, but just like my happiness as a whole, because like I said to you in the first episode, like no one understands why Olympians train to the level that they do and choose to do that. And I knew that our team had worked so hard where I'm like, holy shit, that's going to be the same bar that we have to uphold and work to that level. I don't know how I can do that again because everything felt like it was just emptied out. And
you had no control over it. Like, I think the big piece of it too, like of you reacting that way of just saying like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not doing it that was the one thing you could control out of everything. You were like, I'm just going to latch on. Like, I'm not doing it. Like, this is because it was the one thing that you still had. Like, well, I don't have to participate then.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
It's funny because my best friend lives 5 houses down. And the only people we saw on COVID was my best friend and her family. Couldn't see my parents in Canada. We respected all boundaries, but they were the only people we saw. And I remember multiple times where I would go down and sit and we'd have a glass of wine and there would be like tears streaming down my face of like, Alicia, like, I don't know what the hell to do. Like, if I choose to do this again, I don't know what it's going to be. And I remember her sitting there and looking at me and going, hey, like, I need you to remember why you chose to do it. You wanted to do it because you wanted to show your girls that you can do hard shit. And she goes, think about if you make the decision to quit now, what is that showing them? And she goes, also think about the fact that if you choose to not be there and your team wins and you're not there, or your team loses and you're not there, how will that make you feel? And I think in that moment, it hit harder because it made me realize that it was way bigger than myself in the moment. Like I made a commitment. This is hard shit for everyone. Every single one of my teammates is in the same grind that I'm in. Yeah, I have a family and it looks different, but it doesn't take away how hard it is for them trying to navigate this process too. And so when she connected that piece to me, the one thing that I had to do, like I took a lot of time off. I worked my ass off in the garage, but like I started pitching. The first person I started pitching with was Taylor Edwards at Athletes Unlimited. So I took off April, May, June, July, and then Athletes Unlimited was in September. So I took 5 months off. I was like, all right, this Athletes Unlimited thing's pretty dope. Like 5-week season, I flew in and out. It was kind of scary. But it gave me this like sense of like seeing those women compete and how cool that was. I was like, hey, Taylor, if I could throw on Mondays, like I'd love to get DoorDash and get a Starbucks delivered and maybe even catch for me. And so every Monday she would just catch for me. And I'm like, okay, I need to do this. It made me love it again. And that was what made me go into that next, 2021 unknown.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing was him telling me and Lauren Bay that we were only going home twice from the time that we left in March to when the Olympics was over in August. Twice for 4 days at a time. 8 days home total from March until I flew home in August. 73 days straight, we were gone. And that was yet another thing where I'm like, shit, I don't think I can do it. And then Rafter, who's a loyal homie, catcher, she caught for me for years, had my back so much throughout that process. And, she was my roommate, and her biggest advice is like, dude, this is the last time you're ever going to do this.
Right.
So as much as you're having
Just
these
get
moments.
through this. Yeah. Yes. If you can just get through this. Yeah.
And it's hard. And your husband's mad at you, and you call and he's frustrated because he's grinding. We had an au pair. She was brilliant. She lived with us from Brazil. She saved so many things, but she loved my children. I knew my children were great. It was just this different mom guilt that I know you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just knew that no matter what, my husband was always going to be frustrated at me for a bit because I'm not there. He doesn't understand. And hearing Rafter say every single day is one day less that you get the opportunity to do this, you might as well freaking be balls to the wall, just hit a different string with me in a good way. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to play this again. I don't get an opportunity to be the fittest and the fiercest and the most loyal to my team. Mm-hmm. I am getting to do right now. COVID was shitty. We couldn't go do things. Until everyone was vaccinated on our team, we were not, like with Team Canada, it was mandatory. You couldn't compete in the Olympics unless you were vaccinated. We couldn't go into grocery stores. We couldn't go get coffee. Like everything had to be DoorDashed or drive-through. Masks on in the house until we were freaking vaccinated. I'm like, seriously, dude, I'm gonna stay in my room. Like, I'm not wearing a mask around my house. Like, so there was just so many things that could have just taken us out of where we were trying to go. But I think the longest thing was Japan was still a question mark if they were even going to have the Olympics, even up until
that's where it was. Yeah, I know. Like the odds of it being the year that they were hosting too. And that's like the center of like all of the COVID problems. It was just like, it was such a big question mark. And I think too, like you going through that, and it brings a different level because you understood through that mom guilt in one way or another that what you were sacrificing in order to compete, the time, the memories, the peace of mind, like just like that feeling that you get when you're with your family and like knowing that like everything is complete, like you're missing out on that. And so like that drives you in a different way than just, I want to be the best. I want to compete. I want to win a medal. Like there's just it's just a different, it's almost an exchange, right? Our biggest currency, our most valuable currency is our time. Yeah. And you were sacrificing time with the people that you love more than yourself to go try and do this thing for other people that you had to love more than yourself. And it's just such this like trade-off. Like you say, your husband was frustrated. Like that happened to me all the time when I was coaching. Cause it's like, I'm gone every weekend. He's sitting like, and it's always weekends, right? Where they're not at work or at school. Like they are grinding all day, sun up to sundown with these kids, and you're not there. And you just kind of accept like, okay, it's temporary, right? Like we're going through this, it sucks, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I definitely get what you're saying too. It's like, you kind of just accept that they're going to be frustrated with you, and then you make it up to them later somehow.
So we flew to Japan and had 2 weeks before the Olympics kicked off. Mm-hmm. We trained, and it was so strict with COVID. The city that we trained in, the only place that we could be as a team was in the bus, in our rooms, at the softball field, or the weight room provided through the softball venue. Mm-hmm. If we were caught outside, anywhere, walking around without a mask on, or out of the areas we're supposed to, you were automatically sent home. So it was like kind of trippy when, you're there for 2 weeks. Our little ass rooms were so tiny. We could go in each other's rooms, fine. But you almost felt like you're just not getting the full experience of what it should be, right? So like we trained our asses off. I think the coolest thing was the last official game that we played was against my old professional team that I played with in Japan, Shoki. And I had to leave early because I was pregnant with Maddie. I hadn't seen the coaches or a lot of those girls since 2013. So it's like,
Right.
this to me was such a like full circle moment because this is the last game before our Olympics. I never in my life thought that I was going to be back playing
Back
this game
there.
again,
Yeah.
in this environment with some of the same teammates that were there. It was so special. And then when we made that trek, the coolest thing was we made that trek to the village. It was probably, I want to say it was like a 3 or 4 hour drive. Our mental performance coach, Wade Gilbert, was so dope in the little things that he would do to kind of keep us motivated. So once we got on the bus and we're going, everyone got handed letters. So like there was handheld letters from our parents, handheld letters from our significant others. The girls wrote me little letters, even though they were still really, really little. But I remember like driving and having, reading this letter from like my dad, 5-page letter, just all the things and like tears, like the whole bus was just bawling.
A mess. Yeah.
It just gave you perspective of like, okay, hey, this is the last little bit of gas that I needed to throw on the fire because we're playing in 5 days. These are who we're playing for. They're not in the stands.
It's your
and
why.
You forget. Like, and that was the eeriest thing. You go into the village, fine. As cool can be. Wasn't like 08. 08 was dope. 08 was, you can see a Kobe Bryant. You can see a McDonald's. You can not sit in this tiny little cubicle where you're kind of roped off with clear thing. Like you can't talk to anyone while you're eating. You got to like go around the clear thing. Hey, Rafter, how do you like your noodles? Like you can't talk. The Olympic experience was not great.
Yeah.
You're COVID tested every day. We were COVID tested every single day. Originally, they wanted me to room by myself, and I was an absolute nut job. I'm like, dude, I don't want to get in my head. Like, I want to room with Jen. Like, Jen's was there through my national championship run.
Yeah.
But if you get a positive test, your buddy's automatically taken out too. So like if I get tested positive, Jen's out. She's not on the Olympic roster anymore either. So like you had to be so careful in the village of who you connect with, who you're talking to, your mask situation. And I can at least say we did a hell of a job with that, but you still have a worry every single time that you went and did your test.
Yep.
Like, what if it's a false positive?
That's exactly what I was going to say. What if it was a false positive? Yeah.
And so for us, that Olympics was kind of broken up into the 2 segments where we went to the first stadium. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe it was Fukushima. We had to take the bullet train. We bullet trained with Mexico, and we had to be opposite, couldn't be near them. Quick 90-minute bullet train, which was really cool. And then we played 2 games in that facility. We all had our own rooms, but there's something so beautiful and eerie at the same time, knowing that you're going to play your first game of the Olympics. And, I
no
really
one's going to be there to watch.
That's the eeriest of them all. But we had such a business mentality that we knew this was a business trip. And regardless of the circumstances, it's the same for everyone. And when you can get to that mindset, you're able to understand that like the energy that I need to create in the moment is so big because I don't have any of that. They put on some crowd noise. But like when you're on the bus and you're going to the field and you're like, this is the first game of the Olympics. This is everything we've like worked for the last couple weird years. But the crazy thing about this Olympics and compared to the other ones in comparison was like 2008 and like 04, and there was 8 teams. So you could lose a game or 2 in the prelim.
Right. Yeah.
In this 2020, you can't. Because at the end of the day, the best record, 1 plays 2 for gold and 3 plays 4 for bronze. So if you F up and lose a game that you shouldn't, you're hooped. And so that's kind of tricky. Having that mentality, knowing every single game means so much. So how do you deal with that piece? And we ended up beating Mexico game 1. We lost to the US game 2, which sucked. And we went back to the village. Didn't get to do opening ceremonies. I think Mexico was the only team that went.
Because they were allowed, like you guys internally decided not to do that, like Team Canada did? Okay, gotcha.
And I don't think the US went. I think there was a lot of teams that didn't go.
Yeah.
Another stink about not getting to experience, even watching it. We watched it as a team. You're like, dude, these countries have no athletes because no one's going.
Yeah.
No one's in the stands. It felt
Such a
icky.
big piece of competing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who's in the stands, like you're supposed to like shut them out and all this stuff, but there is such an energy that comes from those fans in the stands and the chanting and the hooting and the hollering, whether it's positive or negative, doesn't really matter. But that energy that crowd brings, it just it's almost comforting, right? Like it's, I don't know. I get what you're saying. Like I can't imagine, like when I think of like big games that I've been a part of, the game at Alabama, like there is nothing like playing in Tuscaloosa. Like that stadium is just, it just shakes like with that energy. And like, and Oklahoma too. Like, I mean, we played there before they did the whole expansion. Like it wasn't nearly what it is now, but like that energy is such a huge piece of that competitive piece of it all. So to not have that is just, it was tragic. And like, I remember us being frustrated, like watching, like you guys were playing on a baseball field. Like there's so much softball in Japan. We can't even get them on a softball diamond. Like, I think that was frustrating to watch. And then you guys are sitting on like bleachers and it just felt, I don't want to say it felt cheap. It just felt like they were cutting corners wherever they could. And I know everybody was doing the best with what they had, like with the situation that was going on, but it was just like, it was hard to watch because I think so many of us were so frustrated from the year prior. Like we were looking to this as like a way of like, okay, we're getting some kind of redemption for like what we had to go through. Now we get to watch these games. And then like to see that it felt so pieced up together. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think of like the US team and like we were like you said, it was such a different format being based off of records rather than kind of having like a pool play and then having that bracket play. I know like kind of what we mentioned in the last episode about like certain pivotal players that were there between 2008 and 2020-21 who were at the height of their and who really changed the face of softball. Because if you look at that time period in coverage and popularity, like softball boomed. And for players like Kaylani Ricketts not to be on the roster for Team USA after everything that she had, like, I mean, I can go on and on about the whole Ricketts family because, you know, like I have personal ties with them, but like that Ricketts family has been so pivotal in softball. Like Sam's still out there coaching at Mississippi State. Stephanie did amazing things at Hawaii. And like for Kaylani to do what she did at Oklahoma and then not be on the team, like it was similar to the Lisa Fernandez situation. Like she's such a competitor and it was playing in Japan. Like, you know, it just felt like it was missing something a little bit there with the way that it was put together. And
the interesting part, and listen, I can't judge how any countries choose to go about their business when they pick these teams. That's on them. What was interesting when it was like they took Rachel Garcia and Bubba Nichols, who were still in the college piece.
Right.
And then you're like, dang, you have someone like Kaylani Ricketts who has a shit ton of experience, who's played at the international level, who knows what it's like to play over in Japan. And those are the moments as athletes. I'm fortunate I didn't have to go through that because I don't know if I could have handled it with the same grace that Team USA did. Taylor Edwards, same thing. Like the way that they were able to handle that piece, write out a big thing even after they departed from their team and they went on to the Olympic Village and the other ones didn't. Like, why not me? There comes the salty Danielle from 2008, but
she's still there, just a little bit.
But do you know what I mean? Like you couldn't be more right when you talk about Ricketts and everything you think about Oklahoma. And to me, Oklahoma's always been pretty dominant for sure. But when I think of like Kaylani Ricketts,
that was a shift.
That was a shift in
Oklahoma
as a whole of like, oh damn, like this is who we got to face. This is 70-mile-an-hour plus power ass lefty.
Yeah. I remember watching that because it was the year we were playing Alabama. You guys were playing them in Washington.
Yes.
That's super regional. Yep.
For freshman year.
Yeah. And she's coming out as a freshman and you're just like, we got this for 3. Like we have to face her how many more times?
And that was our only, that was the only beauty of that, was that I was a senior and she was a freshman.
Yeah.
I can lose a game and understand how to pick up the pieces because I've experienced a lot of shit. And as a freshman, some say ignorance is bliss, but not knowing sometimes how to navigate that piece is what you learn over time. That usually give junior seniors a competitive advantage, right? Like it's, when I really think of freshmen in this game that make an impact, the biggest one that I think that's won a national championship was Dallas Escobedo with Arizona State.
Right. Yep.
Like it is hard as hell for freshman pitchers to be able to be composed and on point to process all the hard stuff that comes with it. So that was the one thing I knew that I could level up in that moment over her. Yeah, she is going to dominate us, but like, that's the one thing that I need to use to my advantage because I know how to. She doesn't know how to yet.
Right. Well, and like, I think of Jordy Ball, like watching her throw as a freshman against UCLA and that swagger that she had and just that, like, I watched that first game when she played UCLA and I was just like, she is a game changer because you just knew, like, she just had that way about her and she was there to compete. So it's to see a freshman in that position to do that doesn't always happen, but it's you get, and then you see them from freshman to senior, like that growth that happens. Yeah.
And that's why you're sad that 2012 and 16 weren't in the mix for Olympics because you could have had athletes that experienced college, got that Olympic gap year, could go learn and come back and impact college greater than they had ever imagined because of the things that they learned playing with women that are older and that get to compete at that type of level. And the Keilani Ricketts was the biggest upset. And I'm not saying that Rachel Garcia isn't an absolute stud. I don't know for them if it was more of they just needed that two-way player. I don't know. I don't know. But
not that Keilani wasn't a hitter too.
I know. And I don't know if it was just more like Garcia's been in the mix even more, still fresh.
Like she's a little bit more like not even, I don't want to say fresh, but she's more like current. Like, yeah. So we'll have to go ask.
But then now it's like, the 2021 ends was great. One of the coolest things that I for sure was ever a part of through sport. When you have that much life experience in between, for a lot of us, there was 4 of us that competed together in 2008 to that, we could close that chapter on being a part of history for everyone that's been knocking at the door to put Canada in that position to do it. Right. And I think we were able to get over some demons, individually understand like how we can impact this team and how we needed to be better. And, that to me is one of the coolest things that I could ever experience was like, shit, I'm over my ego. How can I help? If it's me, let's go. If it's not, let's go, because we're only as strong as the 15 of us. And I think the one thing that makes me the most sad is that there's athletes that didn't get to experience it in 2024. Breakdancing was a thing. How was that a thing? And
it was a joke. Like, let's be clear. Like,
I know.
I mean, it wasn't just that, like, we include, like, if that's your thing, that's great. But like when you talk about Olympics, like this is such a huge thing throughout history, like to represent your country in that competition, like that is like top tier of everything. And it felt like it was being made a joke of. To like watch that and then see all of the stuff that came out after it, social media, GIFs, whatever you want to call them. And then to know that like there were so many athletes that would have killed to get a shot at that.
Yeah. And to be a part of an Olympics where it was so well done. Like, I felt like they did such a good job. Media coverage. Look like they had so much fun. Like all the things. And you're like, damn, I just did 2021 and didn't get to experience any of these things.
Yeah, they were on a yacht. I saw that. The surfers.
Yeah. And so it's like there's a lot of women that you're hoping continue to keep playing from 2020 to 2028 to get that opportunity to do it again. But then you think of someone like even a Haley McClinney after this Athletes Unlimited season announces her retirement. It's like she would have got a chance to play again. Doesn't get to, has to close that chapter. Not saying it can't be reopened, guilty. But what athletes get the opportunity to stick out that long but now don't get the same Olympic experience because it's 2028. It's going to be played
in Oklahoma.
Right? Like,
don't get me wrong. Everybody listening, Oklahoma, that experience is amazing. There is nothing like playing in Oklahoma City as a softball player. However, the whole point, a big piece of like what you've talked about was missing in 2021 is that Olympic Village experience. And I think it is such a shame that they don't get to do that. That they decided that it was just easier probably to just host it in Oklahoma because they already have everything set up. Like, don't tell me that. LA has plenty of places where they can host a softball game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not, and it's not even like it's like 2 hours away. Like, it's not like it's San Diego. It's not like it's like out in Riverside in the middle of nowhere. We're talking Oklahoma. And it's like, it just takes away from it. It cheapens it. Like, it makes it less, it just makes you feel less than as like a softball player. It's like, we're good, but we're not good enough to play where everybody else is playing. And
also, I hate to, harp on this, but like, you think about how shitty the weather is in Oklahoma in the summertime, dude.
So bad. It's so bad.
Humidity through the roof, so hot. Like, California in the summer is fuego, but it's not like Oklahoma City.
No.
Like, and we've played in hot.
Texas. It is not the same.
Japan was hot. Japan was 100 degrees on turf, but we knew that mentally going in. So it's like, not only that, but I feel like I can't continue to keep hearing from people that, well, you guys should be grateful that it's back in. Stop that. Like, stop saying that women should be grateful to be getting the opportunity to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, we're competing and pushing the envelope day in and day out to be able to compete at this level, to be where everybody else is. So we shouldn't just be like, yeah, you're right. Let's go to Oklahoma and everything's going to be fine. The venue's beautiful. There is nothing like the Women's College World Series. When you experience it, whether you're playing on that field, you are sitting in the stands, or you are broadcasting it, there is nothing like that. But I don't know if it will be the same feel like it is. I think you're still going to get all the people there. But there is something about finishing a game, hopping your ass on the bus, and going to the Olympic Village and sitting in the cafeteria together as a team, talking shit, looking at that athlete, saying something about that athlete. Ooh, that guy's cute. Like, there's so many fun things that you get to experience when you're in the Olympic Village together that they don't get to.
And it's not just the Olympic Village. This one specifically, it's LA.
Amen.
Like,
watching
that is
other sports too.
Such a huge city for like the US is like the Dodgers. Like, you've got Staples Center. You've got, I mean, what travel team has not played in Huntington Beach or Irvine? Yeah. As a softball player. Like, to be able to like then like come back as an Olympian and play there, like in the area, like to go to the beach, to go walk on the Santa Monica Pier. Like, there's so many other pieces of that place that make it so magical. And it's so cool that they're hosting that they don't get now.
I think my in-laws are going to be walking in the door in a second and the dogs are going to bark. So I just need to give everyone a pre-warning if that happens.
Fair warning.
I can't sit here and say that I was 100 gazillion % sure that 2028 was an option. I thought about it. And I would talk with Rafter and say, hey, like, if Team Canada is in a pinch, like, let me know, because I feel like I can go and I can train for a year. I don't think I could make a 4-year commitment, but I think I could do a year or two and come back. And like go make that. Sorry, they're just back, but make that commitment to do that. And when they announced that it was in Oklahoma City, it was a hell no.
Yeah.
I won't put myself in that position because I already got gypped at the 2020 Olympic experience.
For a half-assed attempt. Yep.
And I'm not saying that I don't think that people are going to go and have a great experience, because I believe that they will. But I've experienced the 2008, and I wish that I was more present throughout that process because I didn't realize how great it is till it was over.
Right.
And then you do it again in 2020 and you're like, damn, this wasn't what I needed or wanted it to be as far as the experience. All the other things, working your ass off, being a part of something cool. Yes, check done. But Olympics and competing yes, but the experience is what makes the Olympics so great.
Right.
And them not getting the opportunity to experience that, I think, is more what makes me sad throughout that process, because you train so hard for it. And since they may not get to experience it, my like heart hurts for them. But some say ignorance is bliss. And there was some teammates that I played with in 2020 that was their first Olympic experience. And that was all that they knew. And to them, it was the coolest thing ever. And I love that for them. I think that is the beauty of it. So maybe that's where some will be. But being well into my 30s, that's not how I would approach it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So
that's acceptable, because and you have that hindsight of like, I had this experience in 08, I had this experience in 21, and like, I wouldn't want another like situation where you're putting yourself through so much, you're committing yourself so hard to something. You don't want that to also take away from 2021. Like, you kind of closed that chapter, you got that redemption, you left your imprint in a specific way, in like a better way than 08, but like, you don't want to then now have this and any of it to taint those memories either. So that makes sense. And I'm like, I'm 3 hours south of Oklahoma City. Like, will I go? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if I'd
love to watch it. Yeah, but
I want to try to broadcast it some way or another with Team Canada, with CBC or something, because I think that would be really, really special. And if that opportunity is not there, I would consider trying to find a way to take Maddie, or seeing how we could make it work.
You guys come stay with us and then we'll drive up there.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's glamorous as far as what that's going to be, but
nothing in Oklahoma is glamorous.
No, but maybe
I love them to death, but it's not.
No,
it's not going to be the same. Yeah. I mean, I remember, okay. And this is like, you go to the Women's College World Series, they put you up in the hotel. All the teams are staying at the same hotel.
Yeah.
That felt glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, in comparison to where you would be staying if you were in LA, like,
so different.
Not the same.
Funny story. The first Women's College World Series I went to in 2007, we stayed with the teams. And then after that, Coach Tar put us by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nope, y'all don't need to be
crisscrossing in the lobby.
Yeah, and then so awkward. So I remember 2009, we were in the embassy suites and we were by ourselves, and I was like, this is great, because we could own the hotel. You're not walking around. I had a tough time being friends with people we were playing against. I got used to it.
I had noticed it all. No.
Yeah. But way better now. But I mean, I feel like this stuff was super good for like us to talk about.
I think a lot of people feel that frustration. I think from what I've seen on social media from like other softball players in it, or recently out of it, or way out of it, I think we all share that same frustration, because it feels like we keep getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
It feels like we kept getting passed over. We keep getting, crumbs, leftovers, like, and I think softball has made enough of a jump media-wise, popularity-wise, where, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Like, what else do we need to do to earn that same level of respect?
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out for sure. But I think mostly this was like, we needed to get this out, because I think there's a lot of people who feel this way.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything that can be done.
No, I don't think that it's going to change. I think we can only continue to hope that you put on a great enough show, and then 2032 stuff's consistent and it gets better. I can't even say if I know that there's going to be 8 teams. I think it's still 6 again, the last I heard. Like, just little things like that, right? Like, there's countries that are missing out. The weirdest thing was not having a China in the 2020 Olympics. And I mean, that was one of the toughest teams that we ever faced. And then obviously you got to qualify. So winners win. You got to win. But there's 2 more teams that are left out, and that's 30 athletes that could be competing in an Olympic Games that aren't getting that experience too. That I think sucks. So my only hope is that, we keep working our asses off to talk about it, and these women get the opportunity to wear their country across their chest, and they go and they represent well, and hopefully there's stuff that changes in the future with it. But we still got a little ways to go before 2028, but we'll see.
Sign
be
us up.
watching.
We'll run the committee, guys. We got it.
Yeah,
You know,
we got
there's no
it.
need. Yeah, we'll handle it from here. Like there's no
Yeah.
need.
But this was fun. It's fun to talk Olympics. It always kind of brings me back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad I'm done. Glad I'm done.
Retirement suits you. It's good.
It does.
It's good.
It does. It's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
these types of conversations remind me of the work and also allow for me to remember, like, that's why I'm totally fine with being done. Because there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't know about, people don't talk about, and you keep your inner circle small because of that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of navigating all the things. It's
Yeah.
not just time commitment. It's not just like physical commitment. It's emotional, mental. It's you put a lot on the line.
Yeah.
To do that and to put yourself in that situation, to be vulnerable, to like put yourself out there and like sacrifice everything. So
Yeah.
it's nice to like you can like wrap it up and say like, okay,
Yeah.
we're done with that.
Yeah. Grateful
It's
for
like
my
kids,
time.
right? Like I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
done. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm totally good with where we're at. I don't need any more.
Yeah. But I think the coolest thing throughout all of it is that there's such a dynamic piece to help athletes with that I may not have understood if I didn't go through such heartbreak of an 08 and an experience of a different leadership role for 2020. Like there's things that, and you know, we say this, like sports are so brilliant in the fact where you learn a lot about yourself and how you take, how you lead, and are you a follower, and all those different things that come with playing at a high level that I look back, winning is great. We love it. But what we learn in order to tackle life, I think is the coolest part about it, and navigating the pressure piece. And that to me, the more I'm coaching my kids team and helping, shit, I love that part. I love calling kids out in situations where their shoulders shrug and they're not confident. Like, dude, no, this is how we work on this. This is why we get better. This is why you need to be better. Like things that maybe I would not have known at 11 and 12 that I'm hoping to just continue to keep teaching them, because the game just continues to keep speeding up on all of us, I think. So,
well, and and it's not even just sports related. Like I feel like so many of those lessons about testing yourself and pushing yourself, we can like see where that carried over in other places in our life, whether it's work or, you know, personal life. And I think that knowing that we're instilling that in our kids so early on, when maybe it wasn't done for us, is like, what kind of a difference is that going to make in their future endeavors and like what they want to do? And that's the part that's exciting, I think.
Amen, Mama.
Raising
solid end to episode 3.
Yeah. What do we got next? I can't remember what we decided our next one was going to be.
Maybe it's going to be a surprise.
I like that.
Not for us, but for our listeners.
Yeah, we'll know. You guys will. If you guys have questions, comments, leave them, send them. We want to hear from you guys. Give us all the feedback, and we appreciate you listening in, and we'll see you guys in episode 4. Have a good week.
Peace out.